Hello and welcome to Playtonic. In our series on Western political thinkers, today we have arrived at John Locke, who is also known as the father of liberalism. He is known as the father of liberalism because he gave the cardinal principles of modern day liberalism, like recognition of rights, democracy, limited state, toleration, etc. So, John Locke gives the theory of limited state, which means that he has not given absolute powers to the state, unlike Hobbes. In Hobbes, we witnessed that he gave absolute powers to the state, to whom he calls as Leviathan. So here he believes in the Locke believes in the reason of man, and hence he gives certain rights to man and only a few limited rights to the state. Few rights are delegated to the commonwealth, and hence he gives the theory of limited state. Next is majoritarian model of democracy. We'll read about it in a while. Then John Locke was also a contemporary of Hobbes. But unlike Hobbes, who had seen a very troubled phase of Puritan revolution, Locke gets to witness glorious revolution. Now here it had a peaceful change. So he had seen this stable period, and hence he forms a balanced view about human nature. He says that it is not necessarily that in state of nature man will be the life will be poor, nasty, brutish, and man will always be fighting amongst each other. John Locke says that peace, goodwill, mutual assistance, natural rights, all of these exist in state of nature. And then he has given the enlightened self-interest view, which means that yes, man is self-centered, but that doesn't mean that man is not capable of taking care of the interests of others. So man will take care of the interests of others. Now John Locke is also belongs to the social contract tradition, right? And then he has given this theory of natural law. He believes in the theory of natural law, that there are certain rights which are present in nature. These are fundamental rights and these are natural rights. And he says that man is a reasonable person, so reason in man guides him not to harm the others in life, liberty, and property. And since he belongs to the social contract tradition, he says that there are two contracts. First, he says that there is peace and goodwill prevailing in the state of nature, but it is not rational to leave things on the goodwill of man. If man has reason, man has also passion. Hence, we need an insurance against such a scenario. So there is absence of common authority to make laws and execute laws and adjudicate laws in state of nature. So one is the judge and lawyer at the same time. Now it is for this purpose that the state comes into existence. And how does it come into existence? Through two contracts. The first contract leads to the formation of a civil society, and the second contract leads to the creation of a government. Next, Locke has transferred three rights. Locke says that people have transferred three rights to the government. First is the right to make law, second is the right to execute law, and third is the right to adjudicate law, which means the three branches of the government as we know it today: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And then he says that there are certain rights which are inalienable, which cannot be taken away from man, and those are man's right to life, liberty, and property. Next, he gives majoritarian model of democracy, which means that a government comes into existence by consent. There is a government by consent. Now, the majority gives explicit consent, while minority gives tacit consent. And this his concept of consent represents free will of man. So those who get majority will form the government. Hence, majoritarian model of democracy. Next, he says that the government has no original powers but only delegated power. Through the contract signed, people have only delegated few powers to the government, and government is a trust. People are trustees. The government has to work in favor of people, and these people have the right to revolt against the government whenever they feel that the government is not working or the government is taking away their rights. But this revolt, this revolution has to be peaceful. because John Locke believes in the reason of man. Next, he's called as a scholar of capitalist class. Why so? Because John Locke has justified the absolute right to property, and he says that the sole purpose of formation of Commonwealth is the protection of property. It is for the protection of property that Commonwealth or state has to come into existence. And John Locke says that God has created apple, milk, and meat to drink and not to sacrifice. But then, on the right to property, there are certain limitations that he proposes. The first is the labor limitation, which means that only that property is justified which is the product of labor and not of force and fraud. Second is there is no right to deprive others. Right to property belongs to all. None can deprive the other of this right. And third is no right to spoil. One cannot spoil or destroy the property because property is sacred. Now it is said that these limitations are non-limitations. They are actually in favor of the capitalist class. So he is called a capitalist scholar. And then he says, what is the role of the state? The role of the state is that of a night watchman. It has to take care that state is created not to limit the property but to protect it. It has to take care that these limitations are not violated. Next, we are going to learn about one of the important things about John Locke, that is he is called an individualist in and out. Now in Hobbes was called the greatest of all individualists, but then there was some contradictions in Hobbes. So it was said that Hobbes begins as an individualist but ends as an absolutist. Such contradictions are not available in Locke. Locke is an individualist out and out, and he believes in the rights of man. Then Locke talks about one of the important principles of democracy, that is the principles of toleration. He says that everybody should be allowed to practice whatever faith, whatever different religion they want to practice, and no one listens to God. No one listens to the state, to the magistrate in the matters of conscience. So with this we have completed John Locke, and stay tuned to Playtonic. We are coming up with the next scholars. Thank you.